Have you ever walked into a store and bought something and thought, man, I wish I could pay more for this item? Oh, you haven't? Well, Delta Airlines seems to think that you have. And to that end, they're rolling out AI algorithms that will raise the price of your individual ticket to a number that the AI algorithm thinks that you are willing to pay. Fortune magazine starts us off. Delta moves towards eliminating set prices, so just a set price is just a regular price that you might pay at like a grocery store, in favor of an AI that determines how much you personally will pay for a ticket. The airline touted a partnership with an AI-enabled revenue system as a step on the road to fully personalized ticket pricing, part of its goal to raise profit margins in the long term. And I don't know about you, but boy, that sounds awfully dystopian to me, where every company knows you so well, they know exactly the most amount of money that you're willing to pay for any individual item, and so they set that price just for you. That's crazy. And the reason all of this is possible is because of the amount of money that data companies have on you. And all of this, by the way, is all things that are completely legal. They are allowed to store and keep and take, I would argue steal, but take all of this data and then sell it to other companies. If you think about something just as simple as buying things online or getting paid from your job, think about all the companies that are involved. If you go to Amazon, you go through the Google browser on a computer that was made by Microsoft and has Microsoft products on it to Amazon.com to purchase something from a third-party website, then your payment has to be processed through a processor that may distribute it to other people or other companies if the product is coming from overseas. There could be tens, maybe dozens, or possibly even hundreds of companies involved in simple day-to-day activities that you participate in. And all of that data is tracked, logged, and sold so that advertisers can sell items to you and also use it to build AIs like this. And to be clear, all of this is completely legal. The article goes on. By the end of the year, Delta plans for 20% of its ticket prices to be individually determined using AI, President Glen somebody told investors last week. Currently, about 3% of the airline's flight prices are AI determined, triple the portion from just 9 months ago. Over time, the goal is to do away with static pricing altogether, so the CEO explained during the company's Investors Day in November. So it is coming, and it is coming fast. Look at this. They did 1% of all ticket sales, and that's up to 3% in just 9 months, and it plans to be 20% by the end of the year. So in less than 2 years, they've gone from basically no ticket prices being set by AI to 20%. 1 in 5 tickets sold is set by AI. So you can imagine that in between 2 and 5 years, all of the tickets will be set by these AI algorithms. And there's no world in which we as consumers will be able to do anything about it in just 2 or 5 years. It's just way too fast. It's much faster than our government, our legislators, and our lawmakers, and we as consumers can really move. The article goes on, quote, "This is a full re-engineering of how we price and how we will be pricing in the future," he said. "Eventually, quote, we will have a price that's available on that flight on that time to you, the individual." He compared AI to, quote, "a super analyst who's working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and trying to simulate in real time what should these price points be?" While the rollout would be a multi-year process, he said, initial results show, and this is very important, amazingly favorable unit revenues. And you and I both know that amazingly favorable unit revenues just means they brought in more money. And if the company Delta brought in more money, then you, the consumer and customer of Delta, paid more money. That money has to come from somewhere, and it came from you because of these AI algorithms. Delta accomplishes this pricing through a partnership with Fetcher, a 6-year-old Israeli company that also counts Azul, WestJet, Virgin Atlantic, and Viva Airbus as clients. And those are pretty big companies. Azul is owned by Microsoft and has its sights set beyond flying. Quote, "Once we will be established in the airline industry, we'll move on to hospitality, car rentals, cruises, whatever," co-founder Robbie Nissan said at a travel conference in 2022. And of course, that's the plan. This has always been the plan, where they roll out an AI algorithm that works really well in one industry, and then they can port it over to all the other industries in order to squeeze you for every last dollar that you're willing to pay. It starts here with the test ground like airlines, which are struggling, so it's a great place to test. You don't have that much to lose, and it goes everywhere. And if you think that sounds bad, you probably have no idea how bad it can be. Lena Khan, the former FTC chair, she was a Democrat, I believe, appointed under Biden, actually talks about this in this episode of The Lemonade Stand. He talks about how weird and dystopian this is. I watch everything on 2 times speed. This is very important. I'm going to let about a minute play.
And actually, Delta Airlines just announced on their earnings call that they're going to start using some of these algorithms to price some of their tickets. And so imagine a world in which you have the death in the family, you have to go home for a funeral, and they know that. through scraping your email that is, announcing when the service is going to be. They know you're in a tight spot, and so you're going to be charged much more because of that, right? Or imagine that you're a family that has a nut allergy. Are you going to be charged more for the nut-free cereal than for the one with nuts than other families that don't have that, right? And so
now they go on to make some jokes about it and try and meet this with a little bit of humor, but they also go on to discuss how wildly dystopian this is. But to be clear, this is exactly what companies want. Imagine that you are in a long-distance relationship and Delta Airlines knows it, and they know you're going to see your significant other that you love very much and have been in a relationship for a long time. Well, your ability and willingness to buy that ticket is going to be really high because you're going to go see someone you love that you don't get to see very often. So they take that data, they know you're in a long-distance relationship via tracking from all these other companies, and so they charge you more for the ticket. That's wild. Or imagine streaming companies know so much about you. They know when you get like a pay raise, so they raise their rates because your salary has gone up, therefore your ability to pay for streaming services has gone up. Or maybe you get married or enter a relationship. Well, then they could increase it knowing that you now have 2 incomes instead of 1, and so your willingness and ability to pay goes up. Or imagine you're a recent parent and Uber knows that, so they know that you have fewer options in what you can do and the amount of time you have in your day, so they use that to charge more for your Uber rides because you're more likely to be desperate and in a hurry, and so they are able to charge you more. The end game of companies doing things like this has always been to know as much as they can about you in hopes of being able to use that to develop algorithms that force you into paying exactly as much as you're willing to pay. Because it's always been about profits, not people, no matter what these companies say. And to be fair, this is not new. Airlines have been doing this for a while with their dynamic pricing. Uber and Lyft have done it with surge pricing. Online retailers do it constantly. Amazon updates their listing prices something like between 4 and 12 times a day based on demand and inventory, and also sometimes based on what you, the individual, are willing to pay. And they're not the only ones that are doing it. Physical stores are doing it as well. You might remember back when Wendy's talked about rolling out dynamic pricing on all of their digital menu boards. You can see this beginning in as early as 2025, he said, we will begin testing more enhanced features like dynamic pricing and daypart offering along with AI-enabled menu changes and suggestive selling. Tanner said that the company rolled out its, quote, Wendy's Fresh AI in several restaurants where we see ongoing improvement in speed and accuracy. And this article is specifically talking about how Wendy's expects to test dynamic pricing and daypart offers in 2025, meaning that they're able to change prices on the fly in accordance with 1, what your willingness to pay is, and 2, like the time of day. But you can imagine that if you're in the Wendy's app, they can link all of this data that exists on the internet to your app profile, and maybe they charge you more. Maybe they know you're a construction worker who's on a lunch break, and so you're hot and sweaty, so the price of your cold Coca-Cola goes up by $2 or $3 because you're probably willing to pay it. It starts with an industry like airlines, which is kind of innocuous because not as many people fly as use other means of transportation, but then it will seep into every part of every industry where there's any chance that they can use algorithms to squeeze you for every last dollar. Also, if you're enjoying this video, I'm a tiny channel and a like would really help. Now, if you're like me, when you read about this and heard about this, your first thought is probably, well, that's illegal, or if it's not illegal, at least it should be. And I'm here to tell you that not only is it not illegal, but there's also very little chance that it will become illegal anytime soon. And that's both, 1, because of lobbying, which you're probably not surprised by, but 2, a lot of the government agencies that would potentially be in charge of regulating this if they felt like it was bad for consumers have all had major budget cuts, and as such will not have the ability or the power or the funding and resources to actually be able to fight this. Ironically, the AI overview on Google does a pretty good job of running you through the kinds of things that have been happening. After California passed the California Consumer Protection Act, tech companies and industry groups launched a coordinated effort to influence privacy legislations in other states. Basically, they saw what they had to lose. So you can see that reports indicate that Amazon lobbyists played a critical role in drafting Virginia's Consumer Protection Act, which became a model for other states, but is considered weaker than the CCPA, which is the California Protection. Then you see these companies have been defeating stricter bills in states like Oklahoma and North Dakota. In Oklahoma, lobbyists for companies like Facebook and Amazon, led by AT&T. So all companies, by the way, that are kind of competing with each other are all getting together and being like, no, together we can lobby these laws down. They worked to delay and eventually defeat a bill that would have required opt-in consent for data sale and included a private right of action for consumers. Similarly, a North Dakota bill with an opt-in framework and a private right of action failed after strong opposition from industry groups and companies like AT&T and data broker RELX, which I've never heard of, but I imagine they They like to fly under the radar. And then we can go on and see just lots of other examples of powerful tech companies using hundreds of millions of dollars to lobby down these laws that are bad for the companies but good for consumers. And this is what happens when lobbying is legal and companies with near unlimited resources are allowed to have a say in our democracy. Now you might say, well, what about the government agencies that already exist? Shouldn't they be on top of this and looking at it and looking out for consumers? And the answer is they absolutely should. But it's kind of hard for them to if they don't exist. The main U.S. agency tasked with overseeing the financial products and services used by everyday Americans, from credit cards to checking accounts and home loans, is the latest target of Trump's administration's efforts to remake the federal government. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or the bureau in charge of protecting consumer and consumer financials, the new leader has shuttered the agency's headquarters and told staffers to stay home and refrain from doing any work. The Trump administration team, run by tech billionaire Elon Musk, this was back before he left Doge, is also focusing some of its efforts on the CFPP. The Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, has accessed the CFPP's internal computer systems and deleted its public-facing social media accounts. In recent weeks, Musk has criticized the CFPP and X posts, the social media site he owns, at one point saying, "Rest in peace." The government agency responsible for holding companies accountable to laws and just generally protecting consumers are gone, meaning things like this can go through, with things like the AI algorithms can go through, and there's nobody left to question it. You used to have options if you felt like you had been wronged by companies to file complaints and hope maybe the attorney general brought up a lawsuit, class action lawsuit, or at the very least wrote threatening letters to the company so that you would be able to be made whole in whatever happened. But if it doesn't exist, well, then what are you going to do? Now, you may also wonder, well, what about the FTC? Shouldn't the Federal Trade Commission be stepping in? And here I would like you to point you to this specifically. On March 18th of this year, President Trump fired the Federal Trade Commission's two Democratic commissioners, Alvaro Bedoya and Rebecca Kelly Slaughter. The move represents the latest effort by the Trump administration to exert greater control over executive branch agencies, including bipartisan independent agencies like the FTC. And it's obvious this was an intentional move, possibly influenced by lobbying and billionaires, to get rid of the Democrats on the FTC, because the Republicans tend to be less interested in doing things like large government intervention and oversight, and also controlling large tech companies. They're more likely to look the other way. And look, I get it. I dislike government regulation as much as the next guy. If you just look at California, they've got crazy regulations on every single thing that's led to them having issues with things like nobody can build a house, nobody can afford to live, and some $40 billion has been spent on a railway that hasn't even been built yet. I get it. Government regulation is not perfect. But there's got to be a line between the government interferes in every aspect of every company, making things slow, expensive, and just a pain to deal with, and the government looks the other way while every company ever steals all of your data and forces you to pay the absolute most that you are willing and able to pay for a product because you're desperately needing it. And yes, for right now, you do have the power to vote with your wallet and not take Delta Airlines in protest of this. But what happens when every company is doing it? All the ones that are able to do it are absolutely going to do it. And all the ones that can't are going to look at the ones that can and are and say, well, look how much money they're making. They're able to charge consumers exactly what they're willing and able to pay. Of course, we want that. When we let things like this happen on this scale with no intervention, then we, the consumer, have nothing, because we've let big tech buy our democracy and dictate laws in order to enrich themselves. Today, it is Delta, and tomorrow, I guarantee you, it will be everyone else. Thanks for watching.